The Minnesota Vikings have signed Daniel Jones. What does it mean? Is Nick Mullins out of a job? Does this mean that Daniel Jones could be the future of the franchise? Well, not really. We're going to talk all about it because it's a really interesting idea that the Minnesota Vikings are having, and there are a ton of layers to it. So strap in. Bonus time on The Real Forno Show. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
You know the phrase, Dave, that they say, drink the purple Kool-Aid?
Yes.
Great monster,
purple.
baby.
All right. I'm still on coffee. But
like I'm not a coffee person. I'm going to be honest. I am an energy drink person. And I try to always go sugar-free just because I don't need a gallon of sugar. I'm going to get that when I eat about 12 servings of pumpkin pudding over the next 4 days. I can't wait. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special episode of The Real Forno Show. We're going to spend about a half hour with you today talking about Daniel Jones and why the Minnesota Vikings end up bringing him in. Look, if you follow my writing at A to Z Sports, which I highly recommend you go check it out, a lot of great stuff from me and everybody else over there. It's not just about the fact that they signed Daniel Jones. There's so much involved with the why, Dave, and I think that's the most intriguing part of this. The why behind signing Daniel Jones is very layered and nuanced. Look, Daniel Jones is not a franchise quarterback. I think we can all agree that's where we're at right now. There's a reason why the Giants benched him, and we're going to release him after the season because of his contract. He has to be released early. He wanted to essentially get a jump start on the 2025 season and beyond, and he decided that, hey, I want to play for a contender. I want to be involved. I want to be on a team that's going to be playing long-term this postseason, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play at all. I don't think he's going to play a single down for the Minnesota Vikings this year. And I don't think it matters at all. I don't think it's a big deal that he's not playing for the Minnesota Vikings. So one of the reasons why you sign him, and Kevin O'Connell has talked about this in his press conferences. I'm going to have to look later and find the exact quote. It was from Kwesi. I'll be able to find this one quick because I actually just pulled this quote the other day. Because look, the Vikings in 2023, and please excuse my eyes, I am actually looking directly for the quote in an article that I wrote. Look, let's just be honest with ourselves. The Vikings ended up playing multiple quarterbacks. Okay, so here's the quote from the press conference that Kwesi had before the season after they released Jaren Hall and picked up Brett Rippon. Quote, yeah, I think Jaren Hall's done a great job for us. Obviously, he had really improved over the preseason. I use that development word a lot. And with quarterbacks, you don't want to throw these guys in too early. And I think with him, we just want more time to pour into him. That's really it is. And I've learned from last season that you're either one snap away or you're one snap away from being one step away. And we just wanted to be in a position where we felt adding Brett Rippon to the room, we felt good about that decision, but also giving us more time to pour into Jaren and work with him if he so chooses to do that. End quote. Remember, this was when they had waived Jaren Hall for Brett Rippon, and they still wanted to add him back to the practice squad. They weren't able to do that. He chose to go to Seattle instead. Don't blame him for that decision. He thought, you know what, the Vikings still want me and believe in me, but they don't believe in me to be the third quarterback anymore, so we'll move on and we'll try somewhere else. Completely understandable decision. But it's the why behind the fact that they made that move. They know what it's like to start 4 quarterbacks in a season. They did it in 23. And adding a quarterback now, let's be real, might not play. But I don't think that the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game expected to run a significant amount of wildcat because Brock Purdy tore his UCL in his elbow and couldn't play. And Josh Johnson ended up getting hurt. I think it was a shoulder injury. Then he couldn't play. you never know when you're going to need that quarterback. You never know when you're going to have to put that guy in the game and ask them to play meaningful snaps for you. Meaningful snaps is a big deal here, okay? So what happens if, like, let's say Sam Darnold, lo and behold, gets hurt in the NFC Championship game, and then Nick Mullins gets hurt. Neither one can return. Guess what? Now you have Daniel Jones, a guy who has been a starting caliber quarterback at points in his career, a guy who has legs that can run. You can build an offense around what Daniel Jones can do and run some semblance of an impactful offense. And I'm not saying it's going to be great. I'm not saying it's going to be elite. I'm saying that what Daniel Jones can give you for the price, because remember, it's a practice squad deal. He's going to make around $100,000 the rest of the year per Tom Pelissero. The rest of that money coming from New York. So he can take less here. No big deal. That matters. Having a guy with the experience matters. And you know what? If he doesn't play, that's fine. Because guess what? Daniel Jones, one of the big things about him coming out of college was his intelligence. The dude graduated from Duke. You graduate from Duke, you're smart. Duke is a very, very intellectual in university, and you have to be smart to get a diploma from there. So adding him to the quarterback room is going to be good for Darnold. It's going to be good for Mullins. It's going to be good for Rippon because he's going to be able to help you in that sense. Having him in the building is good, and there's so many other layers to it. But the Vikings aren't bringing him in expecting him to play, and I think that's the big thing. There's been conversation all over Twitter. Oh my gosh, Nick Mullins got replaced. Like he's going to be the backup. Like he's going to play. No, he's a practice squad guy. Right now he's QB4. He's going to come in. He's going to learn the team. He's going to learn the playbook. He's going to learn the coaching staff. And guess what? That's a good thing because there's a lot of layers to it after the 2024 season. Because right now, like I expect him to be QB3 by the end of the year. I expect him to be on the active roster. And then guess what? He qualifies for the comp pick formula. The Vikings are going to struggle to get comp picks for 2026 because they have $75 million. But if they can play their cards right, and hey, maybe they sign a couple guys who just get cut instead of true free agents, they don't count towards the comp pick formula. Aaron Jones didn't count towards the comp pick formula because the Packers cut him. You do a couple of those moves, and then you lose Sam Darnold and Cam Robinson, that could be 2 third-round picks. There's a real chance. And then if you lose Brian Flores, there's a third. So you could realistically have multiple third-round comp picks, but you have to have guys in the formula. He would be in the formula, and that would help. Because guess what? Veteran quarterback backup contracts, Dave, all they got to do is be above around $4 million, and that's easy money. Drew Lock got 5. Marcus Mariota and Jacoby Brissett got 6. Sam Darnold got 10.
Yeah, I was about to say Darnold got 10.
Mm-hmm. Gardner Minshew got 12.5, but there was a relative expectation that he would get starting snaps. So that's understandable. But one of the big things there, if he signs with somebody else, which is very logical, like an Andy Dalton type role, because Dalton, I think, is getting $8 million from Carolina. Guess what? He's going to qualify for the comp pick formula, and that's going to help. If you lose Byron Murphy Jr. or Cam Bynum, guess what? They're going to qualify for the comp pick formula. It matters. It could end up mattering. Or here's the best part, as Sarah mentions, TCO is the Center for QB Rehabilitation. Welcome to the rehab center. It's working wonders for Sam Darnold, but this could also be a tryout for 2025. I will continue to beat the drum that it is still a non-zero chance that Sam Darnold is back next year. I'd only put it at 2 to 3%, but it's non-zero. Darnold's playing great ball. And here's the thing. We love JJ McCarthy. He's great, but he's also completely unproven. He has 1 preseason game under his belt. That's it. If Darnold keeps balling out and they say, hey, you know what, maybe we should go with this guy. That's a real possibility. We don't have to like it. We don't have to believe it's going to happen, but it could. And there's a real chance it happens because you know what? It's going to be very difficult to say no to a franchise quarterback staring you in the face when you don't have a guarantee behind it. Because that's what McCarthy is. And that's not to say I don't believe in him. I believe in him. I think he is going to be a franchise guy for this team. But Darnold right now is proving he already is a franchise guy in this system, with this team, with this coach. It's hard to say no to that. Why do you think the Vikings kept Kirk Cousins for so long? We all knew that he was good, but not quite good enough for with all the circumstances. But they kept him because it's hard to say no to a franchise quarterback, even if they have flaws.
True.
Just remember that. I'm not going to tell you it should happen or I want it to happen or any of that. It could happen, and you need to keep that in the back of your mind. You also need to keep in the back of your mind, Darnold could just come back on a one-year deal, and you let McCarthy vest for another year. That's possible, too.
And I looked up the franchise tag for next year for quarterback. It's a little over $41 million.
I don't think they would franchise him. I really don't. I think if he comes back, it'll be like a 1 year, $25 million deal. He'll get a significant raise. But I also think that teams like the Giants, the Raiders, are going to pay big money to try and get him over because this quarterback class, it's not very good. It's not very good at all. And you have a guy playing as well as Darnold is, going to be very, very enticing for teams. Very, very, very enticing.
And looking towards 2025, right now there's only one quarterback under contract. We're going to need some sort of veteran backup, whether that be Darnold, falling back to a QB2 role, whether it be Danny Dimes taking that job at a $8-10 million range, or whether Nick Mullins gets signed again. Somebody's got to be there. And that's what I like. It's like you said, it's a tryout for that. And it makes decisions come that time a little bit easier. Now, if both Darnold and Daniel Jones leave, obviously they both qualify for the cup pick formula, which we wouldn't see till 2026, but it helps. And then we'll go on from there. Then we hope J.J. McCarthy is the future of the Minnesota Vikings, like I've attested to for so long. Mm-hmm. And we find some other reclamation project to go with him.
Yeah. Look, I think that this is as I continue to do work, I think the real angle here, and the angle kind of that you just mentioned and I alluded to earlier in the show, the whole idea of getting Daniel Jones in now is to get him comfortable and see if it would work that he could be the bridge guy. Now, maybe not even the bridge guy, maybe the backup long-term to J.J. McCarthy, or backup for just 1 year. Hey, spend a year here, just like Sam Darnold did in San Francisco, and then let's give you another chance to start in 2026. And then if McCarthy gets hurt, God forbid, then you're going to get a chance to play here, because Darnold had a lot of issues when he went into San Francisco. And guess what? They kind of ironed a lot of those out, Dave. And now you're looking at a situation where Darnold still has some issues. He's not perfect, but my goodness, is he playing good ball? Playing good ball. And they've ironed out the issues enough to mitigate them, to really enhance the successes. Like, I was looking at Sam Darnold's deep throws, because we were having in our A to Z office Slack a discussion about MVP. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I wrote a piece on Monday talking about how if Jared Goff is considered an MVP candidate, you need to consider Sam Darnold. And breaking news, I don't think either one's an MVP candidate, but Darnold has better underlying metrics than Goff, and he has been significantly more responsible for the success in the passing game than Goff. And when you're talking about MVP, what value are you bringing? You need to elevate this team. And I think Darnold has done a relatively good job of that. Just on deep balls, this is all charting from PFF, okay? He is arguably the best deep passer this season. He is first in completion percentage deep at over 53%, first in yards, second in yards per attempt, Tied 6th in touchdowns with 5. The leader only has 7. So it's touchdowns are kind of random. So I don't really buy into that. First in big time throws with 16. 16 of his 22 big time throws are 20 plus yards. And Darnold is top 5 in big time throws, period. And then tied 5th in big time throw percentage. So he has more throws than a lot of quarterbacks. Shockingly enough, Bo Nix has the most 20 plus yard throws this year. Did not see that one coming.
You mean throw the 5 yard to the flat guy?
Yeah.
Bo Nix.
Now, yeah, he has 55 throws of 20 plus yards, but he only has one more completion than Sam Darnold for just 600 yards. Remember, this is all throws of 20 plus yards. This isn't just like, hey, we're going to do the whole chuck and fuck it deep thing. This is any throw over 20 plus yards. That one surprised me, but only 13 big time throws in those situations. But we also know Sean Payton. He has a tendency to scheme things really, really open. And that's not it. I mean, if Bo Nix hits it, that's not like a detriment to him. Bo Nix has played better this year than I thought, but there are still some things underlying that still raise cause for concern, especially him under pressure. It's bad. It's very bad. So we're going to, like every player, we're not going to say, hey, this guy is a stud. This guy is a bust. Give him 3 years and then we'll get a sense, because Dave, he stinks under pressure. He's bad. But yeah, we'll find out. All right, let's kind of spin a couple angles here more with the Daniel Jones stuff, because we're not going to go super long. I'm really intrigued to see kind of how they, like, when they talk about it in the building later today. I'm going to kind of take a look at some of those angles. I think bringing Jones in is really smart. It's never a bad idea to have quarterbacks in the building who are starting caliber. It's never a bad idea to have quarterbacks who have the ability to create with their legs. Now, is Jones a good quarterback? Probably not. Good is such a relative term. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, he's probably a 5. Like, you can win a couple games with a 5 if you have to play them, but you don't want to play them. Backup quarterbacks are such an interesting enigma too, because none of them you would consider good. Quarterback is at such a like the whole supply and demand thing. There's a lot of demand and no supply.
Right.
Like, there are multiple quarterbacks teams who are searching for quarterbacks. Yeah, Merlin, I agree. Like, it's hard to find good quarterbacks. And one of the big things here, Dave, is if you have a guy that has starting experience, if you have to play him, it's better to have than somebody like Jaren Hall as your number 2. Like, I really thought Hall could be a quality number 2 for a long period of time. It didn't end up working out here. And for me, that hurts a little extra because I loved Jaren Hall. But like Mark Phil in the comments says 5 is bad. Yeah. But where are you going to find better as a backup? I think that's a big question. I think it's a fair discussion point. Who's a 6 as a backup quarterback? Maybe Jacoby Brissett, maybe Drew Lock, maybe Andy Dalton, but they're in the same tier as Daniel Jones, where you don't want them starting for a long period of time, and that's a big thing here. Daniel Jones automatically, in my opinion, becomes like a top 5, top 10 backup quarterback in the NFL.
But I agree, because we got quarterbacks, and you look at the best teams in the league, and they're generally in the top 15. Right? The ones that are going to the playoffs are generally top 15-ish just style quarterbacks. And everybody below that does not make the playoffs is wondering why. And a lot of times they blame it on the quarterback because they've got lesser quarterbacks. Now, that's just a generalization. But if you figure you've only got a handful that you might consider elite, if that, and then you have the next 10 that are, well, all right, with the right circumstances, they're good enough to get us there and win. Then you go down below that and go, not even with the right circumstances are these guys. We've got future quarterback in our plans type thing. Where are you going to get a backup in that realm? You know, when backups start at 33, the 33rd quarterback or whatever you want to call it, good backups generally come from that bottom 15. Daniel Jones fits into that category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does. Look, I'm not going to blow smoke up your butts, guys. I'm not going to gaslight you in thinking that Daniel Jones is going to be some savior for this team. He's not. He's going to be a quality backup for this team. And if he has to play, he's going to be on a Nick Mullins level, but he's going to be different than Mullins. Mullins is going to want to make all these big time throws, and he's going to piss you off because he's going to throw picks. He's going to be like, dude, why are you throwing that? Daniel Jones is going to piss you off because, hey, this guy's wide open. Why aren't you throwing that? Oh, I wanted to throw this 5-yard check down. Like, Daniel Jones is basically the worst traits of Kirk Cousins maximized with the ability to run the football. That's kind of what you're getting from him. Now, can Kevin O'Connell unlock more with him? I think that's a really good question. And I think the answer is probably yes, because Kevin O'Connell's proven that he can do a lot of really good things, and he can do a lot for you. I think Kevin O'Connell is one of the best coaches in the National Football League, and you're looking at a guy who is a potential head coach of the year. Like, this is...
And for Jones saying, I want with the Vikings, KOC may be the reason he did that, because we saw what KOC did to Kirk Cousins. Prior to KOC, Kirk Cousins was a 500 quarterback, which is the definition of a backup, even though he started. His whole career was 500. KOC unlocked some things and got him to think better and process better. Kirk Cousins had some outstanding play after that. Then Kirk goes down. We went through Just Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, all that sort of stuff. Then we get the reclamation project that is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has improved so much greatly under KOC's influence. Daniel Jones is looking at this and goes, probably, I want to be next. Or his agent is going, you want to be next. Somebody's in his ear saying, this is the way to go. Hey, could be Kay Adams. She could be telling him, go to Minnesota. Whoever it is, they're making a decision for him, or he's making the decision that it's best. And I like that.
I do too. I'm a big fan of this, man. I'm just a big fan of where this football team is going. I'm a big fan of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah trying multiple avenues to be able to bring in talent to this football team. And before we go, I want to talk about this because it happened yesterday. Ivan Pace Jr. goes on injured reserve. Who do they bring in? Jamon Davis, former first-round pick of the Washington Commanders in 2021. He got cut halfway through the season this year after they moved him to edge rusher because he's 6'3.5", 235. So they're like, okay, it's not really working at linebacker, and he's not really doing the things that we want at linebacker in Dan Quinn's system, which is why they brought in Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jordan McGee. So we're going to try him out at edge because he's an athlete. He made the team, but then wasn't able to stick. Signed with the Packers practice squad, and now he's with the Minnesota Vikings in the active roster. So I took a look at the film, Dave. What I found was interesting. I don't think it's going to end up working because I think Jamon Davis has just awful eyes, and he just does not know how to end up like attacking the right spots and hitting the right holes in the run game. Because one of the big things about playing linebacker is you got to fit the run. So like the A gap is between the center and the guard. If your job is to fill the A gap, you got to fill the A gap. You got to make sure that you're seeing things properly, letting things develop, and attacking at the right times. If you over pursue, especially in zone concepts, they'll just get a backside cut and completely take you out of the play. Jones has a tendency to be a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too jumpy, and I think that's his biggest downfall. But I will say he's kind of got some ability too, and I wonder if Brian Flores can harness it. The way I view it, he's basically, Dave, like Jamon Davis is Ivan Pace if he was 5 inches taller, play style wise. There is some like when he's dropping into zone and he's dropping into the hook zone, Jamon Davis can move laterally. Ivan Pace Jr. can't. And I love Pace for what he is, but I'm also not oblivious in thinking that Ivan Pace Jr. is a complete linebacker. He's not. He is a great sub package guy. He's a guy you want on the roster, a guy you want to utilize, but he is not somebody you can rely on down in and down out. And why I think linebacker could be a sneaky need for the Vikings this offseason. And bringing in Davis, vet minimum, I think is worth a chance because of how Brian Flores likes to use Ivan Pace and how Brian Flores can use these guys in space, how Blake Cashman can help a guy like this, like see the field better, play better in coverage, do this and that. I see the vision. I worry that level of aggressiveness and that poor vision is going to end up just having him absolutely fizzle out. But you know what? It's also a vet minimum deal for Ivan Pace to replace Ivan Pace. And Kamu Grugier-Hill is going to get the majority of the snaps. Jamon Davis may not see the field much, but he could. And I think if you're going to trust Brian Flores for a lot of things, I'm going to see what Brian Flores wants to do with this guy and how we can elevate him and how we can potentially get more out of him. This is right up the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah playbook. Hey, this guy was a first-round pick. This guy ended up doing a lot of good. He's got a huge athletic profile, but he flamed out in his original spot. Maybe we can rehab him. Jerry Tillery is playing his best football in his career. He's in year 6. Jerry Tillery was considered a bust. He's got 12 pressures this year. He's been a really solid player. Let's put it this way. I was not happy when they signed him. They gave him $3.25 million. I'm like, really? That seems excessive for a guy who's never been good. Well, Dave, they're proving me wrong. He's playing more like a $6 or $7 million player. Like, they're getting a little bit of surplus value from Jerry Tillery of all players.
Heck,
that matters.
Ivan Pace, right? Who's now on IR. Ivan Pace was an undrafted free agent. What does Ivan Pace do well?
Ivan Pace Jr. is a phenomenal blitzer and pass rusher. And because of his size,
pass rush win rate is, I think he ranks first or something, or at least in his position. I was discussing it with Darren this morning. And that we all learned last year how Flores took Metellus and said, you do this well, you do this well, you do this well. I'm going to move you around so you're doing maximum things. Everything you do well, I'm going to put you in those positions. Now, if he can do that with Jamon, cool.
Yeah. I think the difference between Jamon Davis and Ivan Pace Jr. is the size. Jamon Davis is 6'3.5", 235. Ivan Pace is 5'10.5", 231. And because Ivan Pace is so small, he uses that leverage to his advantage, and he can dip under the arms and he can bend incredibly well. But he's really only great going forward. And he's great at being able to like slither. He's kind of like a snake where he can just kind of slither in gaps and in between blocks and make plays in the backfield and in the run game because it's hard for these guys to get their hands on him. You're not going to have that issue with Jamon Davis. But there's one play, and I recommend you all go take a look at my Twitter at The Real Forno. Dave, you'll love this. It's just the caption. Jamon Davis might have that dog in him, where it's a toss play to I think it's Tony Pollard, and Davis is responsible for filling like the D gap. So Tyler Smith, the guard, is pulling, and Smith is a really good player, great athlete, really, really strong. He's pulling, and he gets his hands on Davis. Davis is strong enough where he actually rotates his hips to get him with outside leverage. And then he sheds the block, spins around, and is able to attempt to make the tackle. He misses the tackle. But the point is, he held up at the point of attack, slowed the running back down, and disengaged from the block. That's not something Ivan Pace is going to be able to do with any kind of regularity. And that ability is something that's really intriguing to work with. Now, it's really interesting that he's available. It's also not, because he really wasn't that good. But how much of that was potential coaching, and how much can Brian Flores can extract from him? I'm going to treat this one with cautious optimism. I think it's possible that they could get something from him that's worthwhile. I also think it's highly likely that he does absolutely nothing with the Minnesota Vikings, because look, there's a reason why this first round pick from 4 years ago is available to you. Like, let's not get it twisted. He's not good, but you never know. Maybe once you get good coaching. I mean, it happened with Sam Darnold.
Yep. Cause and Effect asks the question, are there any other offense, if I could read this morning, any other roster moves do you think the Vikings may make before the end of the regular season?
I'm going to be honest, I can't predict that. I really don't think so. The thing is,
somebody comes available this time of year.
Yeah, and the trade market's done. So, cause and effect, think about this. Who would you want? Like, and I mean that in all sincerity, because it's not exactly like there's this wealth of talent available to you. It's like XFL level players or washed veterans who, like, oh, maybe there's somebody like, I mean, when we traded for Cam Robinson, it's not like there's a good left tackle out there who could potentially step in and play real games for you. Like, you're not exactly looking at a wealth of like impactful talent for the Minnesota Vikings. That just doesn't exist.
No.
I don't know if they'll make any moves. We'll find out.
We'll see. Reichard and the long snapper come off IR. That'll be done. There's hopefully Pace will come back as well. All those sort of things will happen. There'll be maybe some bottom level practice squad regurgitation. Not regurgitation. What's the word I'm looking for? The turnover stuff. And that'll happen. But there's nothing. I think this is the last major one. And Danny Dimes is on the practice squad. Now, he'll get called up so he gets qualified for the comp pick by the end of the year onto the active roster, but he's on the practice squad. So, hey, and another benefit I heard Mackie talk or Judd talk about, if we have to play the Eagles in the playoffs, which is a possibility, he's played them twice a year for 6 years. He may be able to help and identify when it comes to game planning or what to, helping in the QB room, what to look for. That may be just that itty bitty extra percentage that puts us over the top in that game.
Yeah. That's a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about the direction of this team. I'm excited about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah taking those extra steps to try and bulk up this roster and try and make it as competitive as possible. Now, Daniel Jones, probably not going to make an impact, but you should always be trying. You should always be trying to improve the team. And the impact that Daniel Jones has is likely not going to be from him ever touching the field. And that's okay. You need those guys in the locker room. Joe Flacco would be a great addition to this Minnesota Vikings team. Like, if you think about it, because of the mental stuff, his experience, like to a lesser effect, that's what Daniel Jones brings. And I think that's great.
And I love what Mark said, that Phil had remarked that we now have 3 top 10 QBs in the QB room.
Yeah.
When have we had that? I don't think ever.
The last time we had 2 top 10 QBs in the QB room, I believe might have been 1999. Okay. Oh, that wasn't even top 10. 2 top 11 quarterbacks, Dante Culpepper and Jeff George. And then Randall Cunningham was like the 34th overall pick in 1984 or 85. out of UNLV.
And I don't even think
So, like,
Brett Favre was a top 10, if I remember correctly.
he was top of the second round. I think he was the 30th overall pick. Like,
So
it's interesting.
it's a first for your Minnesota Vikings. And another feather in the cap of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Why? Because we got KOC who loves quarterbacks.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right. Thank you guys very much for joining us here on this special episode of The Real Forno Show. And guess what? You get a double dose tonight because we're going to be back tonight to talk a little bit more about this, a little bit more context. And you know what? We're going to talk Thanksgiving food because it's Thanksgiving.
And we're going to look at the Cardinals game.
Oh, yeah, that too. I completely forgot about the Cardinals game. We've been busy, guys. We've been busy. We're going to talk about that. I may see if I can get us a guest. I have no idea yet. But we're going to have some fun. 6:05 Central Time. Before you go to the bars and participate in the biggest drinking holiday of the year, make sure, 1, you secure safe rides to and from, and 2, join us. Crack open a Busch Light. Like, I'm going to be having some Busch. Dave's going to be drinking probably some Texas bourbon. We're going to have some fun talking Vikings, talking Thanksgiving food. Gravy is the best Thanksgiving food. 100%. There is no argument against it. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Pie.
We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, everybody.
Before that, though, at 4 o'clock this afternoon, slightly over 4, you have the NFC North show being hosted by moi, who will be king. And it's going to be fun because we're going to review what happened against the Chicago Bears and watch Pay, be disgruntled. And we've got the Lions. We still don't have a Packers podcaster yet, but 3 of the 4 teams play tomorrow on Thanksgiving. So if you're off, if you're working, if you want a diversion, catch us at 4. Podcast will probably be out later tonight or tomorrow morning. And then, of course, back with Tyler Forness on the Real Forno Show at 6, as we're going to discuss all of this and look ahead at the first of the bird teams, the Cardinals coming.
Not 6, 6:05. Why 6:05, you ask? WCW Saturday night, baby. Thank you guys very, very much for joining us here today. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. We'll see you tonight at 6:05 Central Time. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!